Hello, welcome listeners and market participants, and thank you for joining KBRA's European Credit Podcast, Conversations in European Credit. I am Gordon Kerr, Head of European Research at KBRA, and today I'm joined by a number of my colleagues from the European ABS Ratings team. Welcome Carl Cummins and Christopher Noonan. Today we will be covering the topic of electric vehicles and residual values. Notable growth in battery electric vehicles and hybrid electric vehicles has been observed across the European Union and the UK auto markets, as discussed in several past European KBRA research reports. Please go on our website and look for these fantastic reports. One question that remains as to whether these vehicles can retain their value in the second-hand market after several years of growth. Although data is largely lacking owing to low transaction volumes compared to that available for traditionally powered vehicles, the growing amount of secondary market transactions and the data associated with them can start to help to provide some insights. On our podcast today, we review the recent values, often referred to as residual values. These values play a particularly important role in the context of securitizations, so these trends of used cars in the European auto market is of interest to many market participants. To give us more information, Carl and Chris are here to provide us with further insight. So let's shed a little more light on the topic of battery vehicles in Europe. Firstly, Carl, as a refresher, what is residual value and how does it play a role in securitization transactions?
Thanks, Gordon. As a quick reminder, residual value is a frequently used term to describe the estimated value of a vehicle at the end of a lease term and used to determine monthly lease payments. Depending on the contract type, lessees generally have the ability or requirement to return the leased vehicle at contract maturity, resulting in the lessor reselling or remarketing such vehicle and realizing a gain or a loss if the actual sales value differs from the original estimated value. Lessors will typically determine their residual value settings using internal and external data points and behavioral patterns, and may be able to adjust the residual value or mitigate the risk through recalculations if the vehicle is operated outside its originally agreed terms, extensions, and other tools. Residual value can also be present in auto loan transactions, most notably in personal contract purchase or PCP loans, which is a form of vehicle financing commonly used in the UK and other countries, and allows the borrower the optionality to return the vehicle to the lender at maturity or pay a guaranteed minimum future value and take ownership of the vehicle, or trade in the vehicle and take out a new contract. Residual value components can be securitized alongside regular lease or loan installments, and the residual value risk is reliant on both the ability of the originator to accurately forecast future car values and is also dependent on the state of the used car market.
Thanks, Carl. Now, turning to you, Chris, let's explore the growth in the alternative fuel market. How has this developed across Europe?
Yeah, I don't think this will come as any surprise for our listeners, but battery-powered vehicle sales are increasing dramatically across the globe. And in 2022, they rose 28% in Europe and 40% in the UK. This compares with rising hybrid vehicle sales of 6% in Europe and 4% in the UK. These numbers are being expanded upon even further as we have progressed through 2023. New vehicles owners have overwhelmingly chosen to pursue alternative powertrains as sales of petrol and diesel vehicles have fallen rapidly. Most notable is the collapse in diesel vehicle sales in the UK, which was down 38% in 2022 and has drove BEVs into second place as the most purchased vehicle by fuel type. If we included hybrid sales too, these fuel types outsold both petrol and diesel vehicles combined over the year, which just highlights the rapid growth of BEVs and hybrids. As we noted in a research report earlier this year, this trend is part of the overall energy transition towards renewable energy sources, made possible by technological advances, increased focus on sustainability, and governmental regulations and incentives. These trends are being observed across many countries, as we see 15 out of the 30 countries monitored by the National Automobile Manufacturers Association have combined sales for battery and hybrid vehicles that outpaced petrol and diesel purchases in 2022. Some countries like Norway, Iceland, Finland, Sweden, and the Netherlands have seen their BEV and hybrid vehicle sales rise to more than 60% of new vehicle registrations. Norway has converted nearly all of its new car registrations to BEVs and hybrids, with 94% of the new vehicle registrations, of which BEVs represent 79% of new vehicle sales. The increase in sales has been supported by various government incentives underpinned by societal interests in transitioning away from traditional fossil fuel consumption. In contrast, countries like Spain, Poland, and Belgium continue to maintain high sales of petrol-powered vehicles.
That is very strong growth, and I'm sure Mr. Musk would be very happy by the growth in battery vehicles. However, strong new sales growth doesn't necessarily translate into fully clean and electric streets, does it, Chris?
Not necessarily, no. Despite the strong gains in recent BEV and hybrid sales, the existing fleet of passenger cars remain dominated by petrol and diesel power vehicles. A number of European countries have had success, though, with a number converting a large portion of their existing vehicular fleets over to lower CO2 alternatives. Norway has already converted over 25% of its passenger vehicle fleet to hybrid or BEVs. Iceland is ranked second with 15%, followed by Sweden with 9%. A few other countries have breached the 5% of existing vehicles, including the Netherlands, Luxembourg, Denmark, Switzerland, Ireland, and the UK. However, the majority of countries have yet to breach the 5% mark, but this is when we look at government regulations, economic incentives, cultural preferences, as well as technological advances. They're all working towards supporting the ongoing migration to cleaner transportation vehicles. However, challenges still remain, including high upfront conversion costs for alternative fueled vehicles, as well as infrastructure development and varying range limitations.
What about in the European securitization transactions?
Yes, in European ABS transactions, we are seeing collateral pools backed by increasing amounts of electric and hybrid vehicles, albeit at disparate paces depending on jurisdiction, originator, target model, and target market and business model, and underlying collateral types such as the split between used and new vehicles and passenger versus light commercial vehicles. As noted in earlier commentary, the market has seen its first public securitization of green auto loans backed by predominantly hybrid vehicles in Italy, while some recent deals, such as the bumper 2023 transaction in the Netherlands, had increasing collateral related to electric vehicles. In that deal, over 40% of the initial pool comprised of leases associated with electric vehicles.
Thanks. So now let's turn our attention to the secondhand vehicle market. First, let's cover the anomaly of the pandemic impact. What happened and where do we stand now?
To put it simply, the supply and demand picture was massively disrupted. Supply virtually shut down in the pandemic and demand remained relatively steady. As a result, production and availability of new vehicles was absent and consumers were forced to enter the second-hand market to find a vehicle. This drove up the price of second-hand cars to the point where some vehicles were being sold above the new car purchase price as there was no supply. This still persists today, with second-hand cars maintaining high second-hand pricing. Prior to the pandemic, there was a broadly standard erosion of value over time, with declining values for the older the car and the more miles that it has been used.
Thanks, Chris. So what has been happening with residual values lately then?
Well, residual values still remain largely elevated from pre-pandemic levels. A used car index from Indicata that we track here at KBRA shows that average RVs for 36-month-old used cars in both the EU and UK remain elevated compared to January 2020 levels. In a report that we recently published, we indexed RVs to their January 2020 values. This provides us with insight into the variation in performance of used car values as it anchors values to a before the pandemic-related supply disruption. It also provides a point in time for an improved cross-comparison between the various fuel types due to the nascent nature of the battery and hybrid markets. Volatility of BEV and HEV values before this point were high due to low sales volumes and limited product choice in the early adoption of these alternative fuel types. Average RVs for all fuel types in the European Union, including petrol, diesel, HEV and BEV passenger vehicles, are 16% above their January 2020 level as of August 2023. Petrol vehicles are 16.5% above average January 2020 values. Diesel power vehicles are 14% higher, HEVs are 7.5% higher, and BEVs have fallen in value and are 6% lower. However, values for all powertrains have declined from 2022 highs. The largest decline has been in BEV, where the index value peaked at 107 in October 2022 and is 94 as of August 2023, a 12% decline. A similar picture has developed in the UK. However, due to the nature of the UK market, as one of the few right-hand drive vehicle markets in Europe, Ireland, Cyprus and Malta are the others, the impact has been more severe. Average RVs for the market generally remain above their January 2020 values by 26%. When analysing the performance of individual powertrains, petrol and diesel have outperformed both at roughly 27% above pre-pandemic levels. However, HEVs and BEVs have not performed as well as others in the second-hand car market. HEVs are up 11% as of August 2023 compared to pre-pandemic levels, but BEVs have declined 31%. Average used vehicle values in the UK peaked at 35% above January 2020 values in January 2022, which was earlier than in the European Union. Values largely remain elevated but have declined throughout 2023, similar to the EU, but with a slower peak and more dramatic decline. The BEV index peaked at 106 in October 2022 and has fallen 35% to 69 as of August 2023.
So why are the battery values in the EU and the UK declining?
So although the demand for BEVs in both the new and used market is increasing year over year, the supply of used BEVs is currently outpacing available demand. The surge in the secondary market supply is coming from the recent increase in new sales, as well as the liquidation of several leased portfolios in the UK, which have been placed into the market. With an underdeveloped second-hand car market for BEVs, the increase in supply has put downward pressure on pricing given the limited demand. The number of selling days required to clear existing stock for BEVs reached a peak of 133 in Europe and 168 for the UK in January 23, according to Indicata. However, this has retrenched to 110 in Europe and 51 for the UK in August 23, which at least offers the positive prospect of a floor in price declines for the UK. The surge in supply was first evident in the UK and had a larger impact on pricing compared to Europe. In the UK, for instance, the new supply of BEVs, which is defined as the share of BEV second-hand supply minus the share of used car sales, surged to reach a net addition of 3.2% in January 2023. Net supply has fallen since back to 0.5% in August 2023. In Germany and France, net supply has increased to 3.3% and 2.6% respectively as of July 2023. One advantage of the second-hand car market in the EU over the UK is the ability for excess supply in one country to migrate into the other countries across Europe. This is due to the unique right-hand driving nature of the UK vehicle market, with very few other right-hand drive markets able to take on excess supply. Therefore, potential weaknesses in European RVs is likely to be slightly muted in comparison to the UK. This net supply surge has placed pressure on BEV RVs as the market works through this excess supply. That said, European markets are likely to see more RV weakness in the months ahead, while the UK values are likely to reach a trough.
Thank you very much for that, Chris, in providing us with that thorough supply and demand picture. Carl, are there any other potential reasons for the decline in residual values for battery-powered vehicles?
Yes, Gordon. Advances in battery technology is continually improving the driving range of new vehicles. That is, the distance travelled on a full battery. The pace of these improvements lead to a greater depreciation in the older technologies that are unable to achieve the same distances as new electric models. Whereas internal combustion engines have improved mileage in newer models, these advancements are small compared to the improvements currently seen in electric vehicles. The average range of newly launched electric vehicles on a full charge has increased to 496 kilometers in 2022 from 127 kilometers in 2010. Although the incremental increases in range have reduced through time, leading to an easing of so-called range fear, as well as expanding infrastructure for charging. This increase in technological advances can create confusion among buyers of second-hand vehicles as they struggle to determine the best measure of the relative health of a used vehicle. However, second-hand vehicles should retain greater value over time as the efficiency of battery electric vehicles begins to reach a peak, improvements available from newer vehicles diminish, and range fear subsides. OEMs, that is, original manufacturers, increasingly offer hybrid and fully electric options as part of their product offering. Further, governments are requiring OEMs to offer more electric and hybrid options to consumers and reduce the use of internal combustion powered vehicles. As a result, competition for these powertrains has increased. This increases the pressure on new vehicle pricing, as evidenced also by Tesla, which started a series of price cuts to support demand for their new vehicles and keep their production lines moving. That, combined with new entrants, also led to lower residual values in the used car market, as the value difference between buying new and used becomes more attractive. Furthermore, the rapid growth of battery, electric, and hybrid vehicles comes with some challenges compared to the traditional vehicle market. One example is the concern regarding the ability to charge a vehicle, as available charging points remain somewhat limited across both the UK and Europe. In addition, there are financial and logistical challenges to install convenient charge points at home. This does not directly influence pricing, but indirectly curtails demand, as customers need to be comfortable with overcoming these challenges. Also, insuring a battery electric vehicle is not a carbon copy of insuring a traditional internal combustion engine, with additional cover required for the vehicle's battery. A new vehicle battery can account for up to half of the value of the vehicle and can present challenges to repairs if there is an accident. If an electric vehicle is damaged and requires repairing, a specialist is needed to handle the battery and technology safely and correctly. This may result in more expensive repairs to electric vehicles compared to traditional vehicles due to the availability of automotive parts and technicians trained in repairing electric vehicles.
So a large driver of the market in terms of its development and growth has been the government, as you both have highlighted earlier. What impact may they have on values going forward?
Well, in the new car market in Europe, several countries provide government incentives such as grants and tax breaks when purchasing a new electric vehicle, which has helped stimulate demand. However, the used car market lacks these government incentives, which creates a degree of mismatch in demand for electric vehicles between new and used car markets. That said, governments are trying to push the development of and growth of electric and hybrid vehicle markets until they have become more mature and well developed. However, concerns in the UK about the rapid nature of these changes has resulted in a delay of the ban on new diesel and new petrol cars from 2030 to 2035 to ease the transition with incremental targets up to that date. Further adjustments are expected in a number of countries. However, overall, the trend remains focused on improving the offering and infrastructure. It just may take longer than some may appreciate.
Thank you very much, both. As the EU and the UK battery and hybrid markets move from nascent growth markets to become more mature and institutionalized, supply and demand mismatches are likely to have less of an impact on the future residual values of these vehicles. For battery vehicles, their value to the customer will likely increase as the infrastructure that surrounds these products also matures. Currently, with limited institutionalized demand and low volumes, any large changes in supply can have an outsized impact on relative values, as observed recently both in the UK and in several countries in Europe, where the increase in supply of secondhand vehicles is heavily impacting residual values. However, the adjustment into a more mature market will have a stabilizing impact on secondary market values, and as governments continue to help advance the transition and redevelopment of the market, this should further support residual values going forward. This ongoing readjustment of supply and demand will likely return to a more normalized value curve for all powertrains. You can find greater detail in the recently published report on our website at kbra.com. Make sure you are registered to receive our latest commentaries and have subscribed to our podcast. Also, be sure to leave us a review, and of course, please reach out and engage with our experienced analysts. Thank you very much for listening. We look forward to bringing you more conversations in European credit.